Welcome to the Expert Commercial Real Estate Secrets podcast, where we believe most commercial real estate brokers and luxury realtors and those in the industry struggle with clarifying their passive income options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven brokerage strategy, such as the EXP commercial model and purchasing investment real estate, is the best way to grow your wealth. I'm your host, Brett Swarts. Each episode, I'm joined by some of the best commercial real estate brokers, lenders, agents, luxury realtors, and passive income wealth advisors in the world, where they share their ideas, deal stories, and inspiration. So together we can make complex brokerage strategies simple and passive income plans achievable. I'm excited about our next guest. He is an absolute heavy hitter rock star, top 1% nationally ranked amongst the top 20 in 2017, 2018 in the lending business. And this is by Scotsman's Guide. And this is based upon units closed. And so, in the real estate finance industry, he's highly skilled in financing for real estate investors, aiding in the analysis and structure of multiple financing properties. What I like best about our guest is he actually owns real estate. And then he has a heart for serving consulting beyond just providing his service, which is lending. So please welcome to the show with me, Aaron Chapman. Hey, Aaron, how you doing?
Not bad, Brett. How you doing, brother?
Hey, better than I deserve. Glad to have you here. So
Thank you.
give our listeners a little bit about your background and your current focus, and then we'll dive into today's topic, which is, what's happening with the changing of the environment in the industry, and what you see changing in the next couple of years.
The background's pretty extensive. It can take a little while to give that background, but if a person wants to really just give the 30,000-foot flyover, it was cattle ranching to working for a welding company at gas plants in the oil fields of Wyoming. Then from there to heavy equipment, truck driving, mining, and then I got my way into this. So there's a whole story as to how it happened, but it was one of those things that beats you down to the concrete. To the point of picking up pennies in a parking lot just to get enough fuel to get home, to stumbling into this, to fighting to make this thing work. And because of what you have to learn about yourself in that type of an environment is where you learn what it takes, the grit and the desire to never give up to reach the extent that you're talking about. Right now, being ranked in the top 20 in my industry. I mean, 300,000 people in the industry, and I'm ranked in the top 20, at least just for transactions closed. And it's not an easy feat to do, and it's even harder now. You're talking about the evolution of business and where things are heading. I love to focus on the turnkey real estate investor, or the real estate investor buying the 1 to 4 units, the residential property, financing with your conventional lending. That's where I focus my energy, because I've found that the lending industry as a whole, the banking industry on the conventional side, it's kind of ignored that side of the end. I want to call it consumer, but it's not a consumer; it's a business owner. It ignored that segment of the market out of fear, because they saw what caused the crash of 2008. And it's really the greed of many. It's not the greed of just the loan originators. It's not the greed of the banks. It's not the greed of Wall Street. It's not the greed of the consumer. It's the greed of everybody that created that, right? Well, because of that, they had to try and figure out where was our big miss. Well, a lot of the big miss was allowing people to buy multiple properties with hardly any money out of their pocket and no verification of their ability to service that expense. And then what you have a big explosion. But when you properly structure, you now have what I believe to be one of the more secure types of loans available to the banking industry, which is the real estate investor. And that's where I focus my time, my energy, is the helping people mentally structure it and focus on, like you said, you have to have a plan, but you also have to be able to adapt that plan. Because if you live by the plan and the plan only, you could take another header into the concrete that you may not get back up from.
Yeah, very well said, Aaron. Thanks for sharing that. And by the way, Aaron's also been on the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast, and amazing interview there where we go into even more detail on his story. So you can go check that out. Look up Capital Gains Tax Solutions and the Aaron Chapman as the guest. So Aaron, let's dive right into some of the changes you're seeing right now, right? And maybe we can do a little bit of, let's say, pre-COVID, a brief overview during kind of this change. And we're recording this almost December 1st of just before Thanksgiving, actually November 24th. So we've been through some changes. So give us kind of like, boom, what's your snapshot of 2020? What happened? Where's the industry going? And then what are you seeing in 2021 for the lending industry?
Well, 2020 was a surprise to all of us, right? When you come into it, you didn't realize what was going to come. Then you've got the virus that comes, and then of course the impact on the markets was almost overnight felt. You didn't realize it until it attacked you, and then when it attacked us, it was pretty rough. To the extent that all of a sudden interest rates just started going up. I'm not understanding why. There was no data to explain to me what's driving the rates up. Why is the mortgage-backed securities having all this massive sell-off? There's nothing that we could see. And when you start looking back on the mortgage-backed securities and you start seeing that big sell-off, that big drop, and then the news started to slowly come out. I was contacting my head of secondary marketing, which is the guys who do all the trading of the mortgage-backed securities instruments within the company, to determine what we have for interest rates. They help us publish the rates, and that's the rates we sell. So when I was able to understand that through the information they were providing me, to see that it's not a matter of the market really pushing rates up. It wasn't a matter of lack of capital. What it got down to was, when you look back in early March, when the stock market took that massive header into the concrete there, you started to see that the banks that were investing into those markets, you have people who deposit their money into a checking savings account, just doesn't go into a vault and grow out of thin air, right? The bank itself has to take that money, put it to work, invest in it. It used to be invest in the community. Now they're trying to invest it globally. Well, when they're investing that money globally and the markets took that major shift, you have margin calls, right? Because most of them are leveraging that capital on margin out in the equity markets. Well, those margin calls came. Those margin calls, that's not one of those situations where it's like, hey, pay us when you get some time. Like, you owe this now, right? That's a DEFCON 2 situation. You pay us immediately. Well, when you're in that scenario, they had to sell assets. What are those assets? If they don't have hard assets in the form of real estate or something like that, they have mortgage-backed securities. They have bonds. They have treasuries. They have other things that are set value. So they started selling those assets. And in selling those assets, the mortgage-backed securities started to drop. Interest rates rose quickly, very quickly. So what started with that was, a complete, almost just shut down of the industry itself. Just nothing was moving, and people were not locking. What I started finding is there'd be little windows where you could lock. So I would spend my day just refreshing. And I'd find these little windows where I could sit down and lock like 30, 40 loans, and then the window would close. And then my team would keep progressing. So I found ways to navigate through that mess. But what came as a result was, at the end of 2000, I believe it was the end of March, I believe it was March 20th, it's when the Federal Reserve started dumping capital into the mortgage-backed securities. Between March 20th and March 30th is well over $1 trillion. Now, to illustrate how big that is, go way back to the crash of 2008. You had 2009 when they started quantitative easing, right? So from 2009 to 2010, they started January 1, 2009, the quantitative easing, where the Federal Reserve started dumping money into mortgage-backed securities, and to try and right the ship when it come to what was going on with the economy at that point. As far as mortgages at that point, were at a complete standstill. So they're trying to add capital for people to borrow, the banks to lend out, so that way get the economy stimulated again. Well, between January 1, 2009, the end of March 2010, right? So that's 15 months. They had injected $1.25 trillion into that. Then they maintained a quantitative easing anywhere from $20 to $40 billion a month, swinging around in there till the end of 2017. And then you saw what happened in 2018. Now you get forward into where we are with COVID. They dumped as much in 10 days as what they did in a year and 3 months back in 2008 or 2009.
That's pretty unbelievable. Just to make sure to just capture that again, what you just said. So between 10 days, March 20th to about March 30th, over $1 trillion in 10 days, versus the old 2008 market, let's just say 09, in 15 months, they did 1.25 trillion. So it's essentially about the same, but doing about 10 days. A fair summary, Aaron?
Yeah, completely compressed, right? They dumped all this capital in just to get back to where, and just put us on the trajectory we were already on. So if you look at the markets, I don't even know if I can do a share screen here or not. We don't have that capability. If you have the capability to make me co-host, I can do a share screen and show you the charts of where they did all this. And so then what it is, it got us kind of back in the trajectory we were heading, but at a little bit of more of a rapid pace, because the market was not doing that kind of thing at the time. So once they got it, then it leveled it out. So what you had is I think it was John Malden and a few other people that, they're very deep into the economics of all of these things, Barry Habib, others that understand mortgage-backed securities. These guys had then shot information off to the Fed. They got a hold of the chairman of the Fed saying, listen, you don't want to keep doing this. You keep dumping that kind of capital in, you're going to drive the interest rates so far, so fast that the servicing side of the industry is going to lose so much money that they're not going to be able to continue. We're going to have even bigger problem on our hands. And so what that means is, when people when you have a mortgage, right, and you close on it, and about 30 days later, you're going to get a letter saying that, from a different lender saying, we now own it, right? You're going to pay us. Well, they don't own the loan. The loan is already owned by whoever put their money into the pool on Wall Street. It's already owned by somebody else. That's the servicing rights. So those servicing rights were purchased by somebody, usually 1% of the loan amount. So if it was a $100,000 loan, they would have paid $1,000 to get the rights to service that loan. And as you're making payments, they get to keep, say, 30 basis points. So over a 1-year period, they paid $1,000 to get your loan, but they're going to make $300 a year on that if you're religious with your payments. Well, it's going to take at least 4 years to break even, right? Just simple math shows that. And if people are refinancing before that 4-year period, they're losing significant amounts of money. So what was happening here is the Fed was stimulating these refis so fast that the servicing side of the industry said, whoa, we're no longer going to pay for your mortgages. We're not going to buy the servicing rights. In fact, you're going to pay us. And because of that, rates spiked significantly, even though the Federal Reserve put enough capital in there to have brought rates even lower than where they were at that time. But they had to increase it to pay the servicer just to take the loan, because Wall Street couldn't service it. They don't have the capability to service a loan. So they had to incentivize these large companies that do that for their business to take that on and take those payments and they're going to make money on top of the money they were making. So you had that as a transition in our industry. It went from something people would stand in line to buy to now, none of us want it, you better pay us to take it. And now, instead of a bid ask type deal where they bid on it and they negotiate to pay for it, now it's like whoever is going to get it for the least amount of upfront capital to get to take that loan, or that group of loans, or tens of billions of dollars in loans, right?
So here's the question I have given that, and that's amazing. And thank you for seeing that detail. So how does that affect the lender today? So someone who's in the industry, who's servicing, residential realtors, who's maybe even commercial brokers, right? Who's in the lending business, how is that going to affect what they need to do today to adapt for the future? Or maybe it's just keep doing what they're doing.
So ultimately, where I think this is, this is going to be pure speculation on what's going to happen, where this is going. The one thing that where I was leading into is that the Federal Reserve is continuing to inject as much as $4 billion a day into the mortgage-backed securities pool. So it didn't just stop at the 1 point whatever trillion. It's continued. $10 billion a day, $8 billion a day, $6 billion, tapered down to about $4 billion a day to maintain the market where it is. So what that means for us is the largest holder of mortgage-backed securities right now is the Federal Reserve. So that I don't know exactly what we're going to have to adapt to. Right now, we're adapting to a little bit more of enhancement to our guidelines. I deal with a lot of self-employed buyers, and with those self-employed buyers, we used to just be able to say, hey, you're self-employed. Here's your tax returns for the last 2 years. Here's a estimated P&L. Let's just go ahead and move forward and close your loan. There was no real verification of employment. Now, because people's potential businesses can suffer quickly due to COVID, it can change on a dime so rapidly. We have to get up-to-date data on what revenue is coming through their business, right? So you get a up-to-date P&L, the year-to-date P&L they've scratched out, and then you have to look at their business bank. It's still working. It has to be evaluated to make sure it looks like it's trending the direction it should go. So there's some enhancements that we're experiencing. We have to be a little bit more cognizant of the ins and outs of a person and their business and their income and all these things. Not only that, there's going to be continued changes on how we do things. And I don't know what those changes are going to be, because when you look at it from the fact that now the Federal Reserve owns the majority of the mortgage-backed securities that have been distributed in this year, That would mean all these people that have refinanced, millions upon millions of people refinancing, they now have a loan that's owned by the Federal Reserve. Well, what's going to happen there? When you have the Federal Reserve has the majority of the interest in this real estate across the country, where's the money coming from? It's coming from the U.S. Treasury. It's not coming from the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is a private bank. We all know that. If you don't, then you're probably not looking in some of the right areas. They get access to the Treasury, which the Treasury creates the money, and the money is created out of thin air, and then it's lent out to us. It's our money that's being lent to us, but somebody else gets to. No wonder they don't care what the interest rate is. No wonder it doesn't matter that the rates are so dang low. What's also very interesting is when you start looking at the mortgage-backed securities pools, they have different coupons. Different coupons means different places where somebody's going to invest into that pool for a base rate. Then you can add a margin onto it to create your regular rate. Well, another thing that's new to the industry, I've never seen a 1.5 coupon ever published. We're now publishing a 1.5 coupon, meaning that's the base rate that whoever invests into that pool is going to get a 1.5% return on their money. But then you have to have margins into it to be able to get the actual rate, to be able to pay all the people in the middle to get the loan done and then service the loan. Because remember, servicing guys are not paying for it right now. They're getting paid in many instances. So you have to add more margin. Now you're talking about interest rates in the low twos potentially. Just because it's just being published doesn't mean it's being released yet, but that's being published. So now we get these extremely low interest rates, probably going to drive more refinancing. I'm not trying to get a conspiracy theory going on here, but what the hell is the end game when the Federal Reserve is the one who's going to have all these the notes on these properties, all these deeds of trust floating around out there? You have all the money coming through the Treasury that's being created as thin air, which is usually public capital for the American citizen, but yet you're the one paying it back at an extremely discounted rate in a high inflation environment. It's the other thing we're looking at. Inflation is going to be, in my opinion, raging with all this monetary creation, the creation of over monetization of our economy. When you start look at the money supply, it's through the roof. It's never spiked that high. I always tell people, go to John Williams Shadow Stats, shadowstats.com, look at the charts on money supply. You've never seen that happen. The spike in money supply, the spike in corporate bonds, in mortgage-backed securities, in treasuries that the Federal Reserve owns is completely off the chart. Never seen before.
Yeah, so much there, Aaron, and it's not enough time to unpack it all, but but really, it's kind of unforeseen times in a lot of ways, right? So many moving parts, so much pressure on the Federal Reserve. Yeah, it's hard to even wrap your mind around it. And I think part of the American public, we get a little bit immune to it because we've been hearing about this debt crisis that we've had for so long, and it's like it's just at what point is it really going to hurt us as Americans, as citizens, as for global financial markets? In the meantime, people are refinancing, getting lower interest rates, right? And then I guess hoping and praying that this thing all, the house of cards, if you will, stays all together. But now, so okay,
in
so
their
now
mind, things are still just working, right? Business is going on, life is going on. I got my expenses are dropping, all that kind of stuff. I'm gonna go buy more stuff. Black Friday's coming. That's where I don't know. And it's like you said, that we're so becoming so used to it that the alarms are not going off. For me, they're freaking out. I mean, I look at this and I'm scratching my head. I have no idea what to expect. I remember back in when people were the duck and cover days, at least I don't remember it personally because I didn't have to, but I remember seeing all the videos and stuff in elementary school that this was a thing in life. And you can go back and look at it online. It's like, that's where we're at right now, but it's been very docile. People aren't realizing exactly what's happening. All I can do is point out the observations of what I'm seeing. What this means for us on our industry, I don't know. The one thing I tell everybody is like, given the fact that where it is, leverage high, leverage long, payoff slow. If you're going to get long-term rates at this low, and you can get an asset that continues to pay you over that period of time, and somebody else is going to pay off the debt for you, then there's no reason not continue as status quo, which is purchasing property, leveraging it long-term, continue to get cash flow. That's the best play I can see at the moment because I can't see beyond what we're looking at right now.
Yeah, thank you, Aaron. I appreciate you sharing that. Really interesting. Really interesting. We're we're also exploring and looking at the brokerage model too, which is kind of shifting and changing at a rapid pace given COVID-19. In fact, recently made the move to EXP Commercial, which is a cloud-based model. And it's to hedge against and take against a lot of the expense and use it as a way to fund and build equity share and stock share and revenue share inside a big company. And so it's really interesting to see. I'm curious if and when, and maybe already has, I don't know about on the lending business of how these different teams or different models, are changed. Any thoughts on that? Or have you seen that already happening?
So there's definitely models that are adapting to what's going on. To be able to say what to analyze exactly what they're doing is kind of hard to do because I'm so buried in my own situation. We have an avalanche that's piled on top of my team. We're trying to dig ourselves back out of it, and we're getting there slowly, right? I've had to add more people. I've had people that were out with COVID. I've had people actually quit and check themselves in a mental hospital because of the strain. I'm not kidding. That's not a joke. I've had things like that occur in the last couple of months. And yes, there's going to be a lot of adaptation. There's a lot of things that people are going to have to do to team up, strategize, expand. I'm working on multiple different things myself to continue to brand separately, but also this is going to be my continued focus is the real estate investment finance. But I honestly have not been able to look around and see what people are doing and what they're having to do to continue to maintain their business, just because I'm so head down looking at my own.
Yeah, no, I hear you. It's kind of I felt in 2022. We've grown rapidly, like doubled our employees, and business has boomed. And we're looking at, hey, how do we create systems and how do we align strategically with business partners and different people in the industry to keep it as keep the wheels going, right? And be able to keep it smooth and in a process. Because it's one thing to have a bunch of business. I think of it like the servicing companies, right? I mean, it's one thing to have a bunch of money to be able to lend, but if you can't service those things, nothing's going to happen, right? So the key is you need to have both opportunity and the team behind it to execute the deals that need to be done, right?
Well,
So
and nobody was built to handle what came. So that's a key point with what you're just talking about there. Everybody wants more business. We're all talking about, I want to grow my business by X, right? We're constantly looking at it from that direction. Nobody is ready to scale as fast as we need to scale. We went from an industry that was staffed and set up in a way to be able to process $2.5 trillion in transactions per year. That's a lot of transactions. But the current demand right now, this quarter is over 4 trillion. So if we're 2.5 a year and we have a current demand of over 4, that's 7 times the annual amount that we've ever been staffed for. So yeah, was I wanting to grow my business? I constantly grow my business. I've been working on growth forever and strategically putting people in certain places to do certain things. I had a staff of coming into COVID. I think it was a staff of 20 or 21. I've got 30 right now. And that's even after losing a few of them and replacing them. And now we're hiring more. I'll have 32 by the end of the year. And trying to train those people, fit them into the system, get a system that adapts to that. What got me to the ability to produce, we'll close about 1,300 transactions this year. The ability to close 1,300 transactions right now, we have built a system that will do that. But the demand is over 3,000 transactions a year is what my demand is right now. What got me to 1,300 is not going to get me to 3,000. I have to retool. I have to re-equip. I have to re-personnel to do that. And it's happening so quick that the big stress is, am I going to adapt to it? And I'm going to tool to it. Is it going to change and shut off on me? What are you going to do to prepare yourself to continue to fuel your business at the pace it needs to be fueled based upon your tooling and based upon your personnel when things drop off? And that's the big question that we all have to be fighting.
and I think this is part of the answer, right? Learning to work harder on ourselves than we do on our jobs. And it's the same by Jim Rohn. If you work harder on your jobs, you'll make a living. If you work harder on yourself, you'll make a fortune. And the idea is to become more as leaders, right? And the ceiling of any company is the leader, right? So
Mhm.
until the leader gets better, nothing gets better. But as the leader gets better, everyone gets better. And then as everyone is owning that and growing in that, of course, systems and of course working hard and of course doing these things, but we got to become more, right, in order for the company to grow. Any thoughts on that, Aaron?
Oh, and I 100% agree. My growth happened, in this when I started working on Aaron. When I started getting up at 4:30 in the morning, I started reading every day, feeding my head with the right things, and then started developing myself properly, and then allowing that to bleed off to my team. I was doing 18, 20 transactions a month, an A player in the industry, to 1,300 a year. That's a big jump in less than 5 years.
Mhm.
That happened, that I had to make that decision. When the decision actually came around, I really prayerfully started working on me, was November of 2015. And I still remember all the feeling and the change and how it all shifted. And it all started with the book, The Goal by Eli Goldratt. I was not a reader. I hated reading, couldn't stand it. I didn't see the point. I didn't write down things. I wrote down things before that and they started to come true. They started to come true when I started working on me. You can't just write stuff down and put up a vision board and bullshit like that and it just appear. You have to work on the tool that's going to accomplish that, which is you. And I didn't do that until I picked up that book at the recommendation of a friend. I'm like, I've tried everything else. I'll try this. I did it. And I started letting my mind wander on how I can create from there. And then the next book appeared to me, then the next, and I found another one. Then I wrote some, so now it's evolved to this thing from what do I do to I know damn well what I got to do. And that's where I'm going. And I know I'll never get there because I've set the goal so high it's unachievable for myself. Me as an individual, I'll be working on it till my death. And I'm not kidding. When I go to the grave, I'm coming in hot. I will never stop. I'll never retire. I'll never lay down. And when a person gets to that point, you have and being willing to take the beatings that come with that, you have absolutely no choice but to succeed. And Jim was 100% right. Work on you first. Everything else will just lay down in front of you. And it's not going to be easy. It's going to hurt. Every bit will hurt, but it's worth every bit of it because then you have meaning. You have a reason to get up in the morning.
Absolutely. So amazing. So well said. And by the way, for those who are listening and looking at the EXP model, what I love about what EXP has done, they just bought and they doubled down on leadership and personal development. And they bought a 123-year-old company, and it's known as like Success Brand or Success Magazine. And they bring in their leadership team, and they acquired it for $37 billion. And they're pouring into their leadership, into their brokers, into their agents, into everybody, because the way the vision that I love about it is they say, hey, we're actually a leadership per personal development company who happens to sell real estate, right? And so they thought for Aaron, or the challenge I have you, Aaron, is Aaron, how do you guys become a leadership and personal development company who happens to do finance and loans, right? It's kind of a mindset shift, right? And like you said, sometimes we get caught on this avalanche and it's just so much, and we're like, oh, we got to dig out of this, but it's going to take a shift, right? And we can lose our focus. I think part of 2020, the biggest challenge for me was not losing focus, right? And I had to literally just turn off the news. I had to turn off, a lot of the noise, a lot of just everything else, and just dial down and focus on how are we going to serve our clients? How are we going to grow our business? How are we going to grow ourselves? And it's tempting, right? Because we're in what's called the attention age. It's not the information age. It's everything that's drawing for our attention and losing our focus. So any thoughts on that, Aaron?
Oh, yeah, huge thoughts on that because that's where I had to do myself, figure out how do you continue to be viable, right? You have to be able to draw people's attention. So that was when this all started to happen. The COVID started to take over the world and it started to impact our markets. It's hard to have the conversation one person at a time and get the word out. So that's why I decided to start doing the videos twice a week, Tuesdays and Fridays, explaining what's going on in the market, what I understood was happening, and what I wanted my clients to understand about the market. So that way they can make decisions about their business. And so that was going out to my database twice a week for them to take a look at and see and be able to make decisions about their business going forward. On top of that, I went ahead and started up a YouTube channel to do what you just said. How do you provide content, provide information, and also that enhances your business? So
could you plug that video? What's that YouTube channel, Aaron? Plug it
YouTube.com/quit jerking off.
That's a colorful name. That's a really color. That's probably one of the most colorful. We won't forget that one.
I hope not. And there's no G in jerkin. So it's just, you got to go full redneck with it. So okay. YouTube.com/quit jerking off. That is, there's, I think 60 or 70 videos up. And one of the coolest ones that's up there was last month. I had the opportunity to sit in a hunting blind with Adam Vinatieri and interview him about his life and what he experienced and what was basically the toughest thing he ever went through that made him what he is.
Mhm.
Right? Because we all have the what I call it's the best worst. What's the best thing that ever happened to you was actually the worst thing that could have happened at the time that actually catapulted to who you are. Because we never make it, we don't become who we are because life is easy. So that's my whole drive behind it, is to get the best information from the best people I know. And it doesn't have to be moguls. It doesn't have to always be sports stars. I found myself an opportunity to go hunting with the man, and I interviewed him, and I had a camera there. And so we put that out there. And what you get to see repeatedly over and over and over again, that people do not accomplish anything unless they fight through the troubling times. The harder it is, the greater the reward. And right now is hard. So the reward that's coming, if you stay at it, you stay active, you don't give up, you just wipe the blood off, get it out of your eyeballs, and keep moving forward. Huge rewards come from this. I don't know what it is. I can't predict it because this is unprecedented, but I guarantee that in my opinion, this is Aaron Chapman opinion, the last form of natural selection left is those who get up and those who stay laying down, because we have nullified natural selection with medicine. We have completely legislated away personal responsibility. Last thing that's left is those who take a beating and get back up, those who take a beating and stay down. And that's my goal with the Quit Jerking Off initiative, is what I call it, is telling people to quit wasting time on things of zero value, quit jerking off, focus your energy on what's going to be of value to you and those around you, and go get it. And when you stumble, when you get hurt, get your ass back up and keep moving, because when the rest of the world is laying there licking their wounds, you can keep moving and past them. Opportunity lays there like crazy to do that, because the majority of people will not get back up.
Beautiful, beautiful. I think of this quote here: considered a privilege, not a sacrifice, to pay the price for our dreams. Right. So, what are your dreams? What are your visions? Consider it a privilege, not a sacrifice, to pay the price to accomplish your dreams, to accomplish your goals. And look at this as an opportunity. These challenges, this COVID-19, this whatever you're facing in 2020, look at it as an opportunity to grow yourself, grow your team, grow your family, and hopefully grow your business and grow your profits. And with that, Aaron, we're out of time. So would you remind our listeners where they can find you? And then I'll have the last word for us.
Go to aaronbchapman.com, AARON, B as in Bravo, CHAP as in Paul, MAN.com, or just Google me, Aaron Chapman. I pop up right there on the front page. Also go to the YouTube channel, check that out.
Beautiful. Well, thank you, Aaron, for being on the show. Thank you for sharing your passion, your inspiration, your insights on what's going on right now, and we're all better for it. And I also want to I want to encourage you, Aaron, keep doing what you're doing. Right? Keep doing it. Don't give up. Keep persevering. Keep fighting, and keep inspiring us to do the same. And also, I want to thank our listeners for listening to another episode of the Expert Commercial Real Estate Secrets podcast. As always, we believe most commercial real estate brokers, even lenders and luxury realtors, they struggle with clarifying their passive income options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven brokerage strategy, such as the eXp commercial model and purchasing investment real estate, is the best way to grow your wealth. Hey, if you want to hear and see how the eXp commercial model is hands down the best way to grow your real estate business brokerage, go to expertcresecrets.com. That's expertcresecrets.com. Please rate, review, subscribe. We so appreciate everybody. Thank you.